So we've touched on this briefly in our past two videos about the chaos of, well, of what should be, or at least what is meant to be, a big uniting moment for any political party going into your conference, where it's like a big ooh rah rah moment. You know, this is how good we are, but given the current state of the Tory party, it's not like they've got a lot of, shall we say, successes to celebrate. And that's part of the problem. Rishi Sunak was put in there to solve their problems. What has Rishi Sunak actually done to solve any of these problems? The small boats crisis. Well, we know how to solve the small boats crisis, but he's given it to Suella Braverman, who is so incapable, she makes Boris Johnson look good by comparison. That's how bad she is. But here you have her openly declaring she is the next natural leader of the Conservative Party, making speeches at the UN which make the UK look absolutely insane and bordering on us becoming an international pariah. And yet Rishi Sunak does not seem to have a problem with letting Suella Braverman go out and say all the stuff that she said in her speech. Not only that, you've got a new faction appearing at this Conservative Party conference, the New Conservatives. You've got Red Wall MPs launching this manifesto, which is meant to be about, okay, we need to like invest in the North. This is what we need to do. The only problem is that's what they've meant to be have been doing since 2019. So come on, guys, you're far too late by this point already. And then, of course, you've got Ian Duncan Smith, Priti Patel, and of course John Redwood launching their own far-right wacky manifesto where they want to leave the European Court of Human Rights and do all this far-right stuff which they've been dreaming and talking about for years. You know, we have this massive majority and yet we have wasted it. Yeah. I'm glad that they've wasted it because, to be honest, thank God all the Tory party is not on that train. Because if it was, we would be in a world of problems, massive problems. And yet, the worst part of all this has been that you have had a rebellion going into this conference of Tories, at least at the moment 30. There is said to be more behind the scenes who have openly said, we will not vote for any more tax rises. This means that Rishi Sunak's next autumn budget, which, well, is rapidly approaching, raises a serious question. Can Rishi Sunak pass his own budget? Now, I've already seen Phil did a video on this, but I haven't watched it. But I have seen he's done a video on this. But hopefully I'm going to do something a bit different. We're going to talk about the scenarios, the pre-budget shenanigans, which undoubtedly are going to take place. And then we're going to happen what happens at this budget vote. What could happen, the way these votes could break down, and what could be the consequences of those votes should they take place. They're going to have big repercussions. So before we do go getting on into that, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page, the one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, well, buy me coffee. There is the Pony Club as well down below. There's the Patreon page. There's the YouTube thank you button. And of course, as always, you can click the like and share. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment down below because that always helps with the algorithmical things. So, well, let's crack on. So first part, you've got the rebellion. This is part of all this pre-budget shenanigans. And as we've been saying, Rishi Sunak can't even choose his own trousers. There will be MPs busting into his bedroom saying, you can't wear those trousers, Rishi. They're not the right type of grey, or those need pinstripes. And or there will be some other coming in saying, grey, what are you doing? They should be navy blue, Rishi. He probably couldn't even choose his own pair of socks at this point. Such a weak prime minister he is. And this is what we are going to see. Conservatives arguing, pushing Jeremy Hunt, Rishi Sunak to get their agenda on. What agenda are we hearing the most about? It's tax cuts. We want tax cuts. We want tax cuts. We want tax cuts. Has been the drumbeat for well over a year, if not more, at this point, from the Conservative Party. Why do they want tax cuts? Well, as you know, most of the Conservative Party is on this free market fundamentalist mindset, where in their ideology, if we cut taxes, then somehow all this wealth that we have cut, that the rich no longer have to pay, all trickles down. And this goes into the economy and makes it grow. Now, of course, if you've ever been paying attention to this economic theory that they've been heavily proselytizing for years at this point, it has not worked. And if tax cuts did work, why is no other country pursuing an agenda of heavy tax cuts? It's a valid question to ask, one, of course, which they can't answer. But of course, Liz Truss has the answer, and she would gladly point out to you it's all that orthodox treasury's fault, and it's just part of that old economic thinking. Meanwhile, of course, her crazy economic thinking almost led to the complete crashing of our economy and the destruction of the pensions markets. Trust me, I've said it before, that was a mini budget. Imagine the chaos she could have created if it had been an actual budget. So that's what the pre-budget shenanigans are going to be. Tory MPs vying, saying that this needs to be in the budget, that needs to be in the budget, this needs to be in. That's what we're probably going to see heavily, and especially against Jeremy Hunt. There may even be calls for Rishi Sunak to get rid of Jeremy Hunt. He has not been popular for quite some time amongst Tory MPs, and a lot of them that want all this stuff want him gone. We will see if Rishi Sunak caves in and gets rid of Jeremy Hunt. And if that happens, well, who knows what kind of bad budget we could end up seeing if they replace him. And then it's who do they replace him with? That's the big question. We'll see if that happens. But then, of course, we get on to the possible budget scenarios. So there's the first one that I've talked about, the what I would call the symbolic blocking vote. That Rishi Sunak and Jeremy Hunt stand up, deliver their budget. This is what we're going to do. Here's the vote. We Conservatives, we vote against it. Now, if there is this genuine, open, big rebellion, then there is two things that could happen here. First of all, you could see the genuine level of dissatisfaction against this budget. But the budget might still pass. It might just squeak through. But then this would signal a very weak government on the fact that it had to rely on Labour votes to be able to pass this budget. Now, the stuff that Keir Starmer could do, if that's the case, if I were Keir Starmer, I'd be going strolling into Rishi Sunak's office and go, by the way, this is what we want to see in the budget. And just then stroll out and just see what happens. Could be an interesting tactic for Labour to use. I doubt they would do it. But would be interesting to see if they could themselves try and sneak their own things into the budget, which could maybe help at this, crucial time. But then, of course, you've got the other option where maybe it just doesn't pass. Maybe it just doesn't pass by a couple of votes. That would be a problem. That would send ripples through the economy. That would signal the weakness of Sunak's government. But ultimately, what I would call that would be a show vote of what they could do. And then ultimately, they would pass the second time it went through. They would pass it. And that would be to say, hey, Rishi, we are displeased with you. We want this stuff. We want to see this stuff in like the next, couple of weeks. But to be honest, if I were Rishi Sunak, I'd be like, okay, let's go for a general election. Because to be honest, at that point, that should be the parachute moment for Rishi Sunak, realizing, yeah, I'm can't control this mob anymore. Not that he had control to begin with. That should be the moment he should parachute out. And I wouldn't be surprised if we saw that. There is then also the continuing scenario where they don't pass it, and they don't pass it again, and they don't pass it again, and they refuse to pass it unless their demands are met. And they hold the budget hostage. So you could see demands, as we've already discussed, for getting rid of Jeremy Hunt, tax cuts. And that's the two things that they want. That's the two things that they want. Whether they will have enough votes to be able to do that and to be able to sustain that, that will be a problem. But of course, at that point, that will cause massive ripples in the economy. So thanks, guys, for once again making the economy even worse. But we'll have to see what happens. Trust me, after this conference, we are looking at a budget showdown. And it's going to be very interesting to see where the chips land, essentially. Are we going to see demands made before? Are we going to see the show vote of not passing the budget the first time, then passing it the second time to show the displeasure? Are we going to see the budget barely just scrape through on Labour votes? Which, again, interesting stuff that Keir Starmer could, stroll into, along with Rachel Reeves, just stroll into Rishi Sunak's and Jeremy Hunt's office and just go, there you go. You want us to vote for the budget. We want to see some of this stuff in here. It would be an interesting thing to do. And of course, if I were Labour, I'd be proudly proclaiming that thing that was in the budget, that was us. Would be an interesting tactic to see them use, but we'll see. But this is what could happen. These are some of the scenarios we could see. But either way, this budget crisis, if not properly handled, and I don't think Rishi Sunak can handle this at all, is going to signal just how weak and fractured this government is when it has a majority of about 80 plus, I think it is, or at least meant to be. And Rishi Sunak has just shown he's really got a majority of 0 or even less than that. Labour could use that to show that they don't have the government. There could end up being a vote of no confidence in Rishi Sunak. So many things could happen. So many things could happen. We could be entering into yet another crisis period. And here's the thing, guys. I'm going to Ireland in a couple of weeks' time. Guess what happened the last time I went to Ireland? I took off with Liz Truss, meant to be firmly in the seat of government. And then, of course, barely by the time I took off, not only had she gone, resigned, and landed, almost changed governments. So, who knows? Maybe my trip to Ireland's yet another sign of things to come. We'll see. But as always, thank you very much for watching. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.